times are closing, for their kings have had their day, and with them sin and sorrow will forever pass away. For the tribe of Judah's Lion now comes to hold the sway. Our King is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Every one of us are well and happy. Every day we're still working away. And we feel, as Brother Russell has said, the Gentile times have ended, and their kings have had their day, so we know not what awaits us. May you, day by day, keep close to the Master, and his presence will so cheer you that nothing shall be able to dismay you. Edith Kessler, October 11th, 1914.
At the kingdom's birth in 1914, the Bible students were not exactly sure what was going to happen.
Slow down, Bubba. Yes, the international Bible students, along with C.T. Russell, knew full well what to expect in October of 1914. See, they were expecting to be taken up to heaven for their heavenly reward, and Armageddon soon to follow. See, they recognized at that time that Christ's invisible presence began in 1874. Well, obviously, Russell went to his death 2 years later when he died in October or Halloween of 1916 with his prophecy totally unfulfilled. So obviously that prophecy had to be watered down and changed. After the hostile takeover of Judge Rutherford, an abundance more prophecies were added. Failed prophecies, I might add. Remember Beth Sarim? Or how about millions now living will never die, which sometime later was watered down to millions now living may never die, and all these years later, those millions living are dead. Well, then of course we had Nathan Knorr and Fred Francis' embarrassing 1975 fiasco. If you look at the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society from beginning up until today, they have had over 30 failed prophecies. Not one has been fulfilled, and yet Jehovah's Witnesses are not seeing this. Everything the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society has ever said has failed miserably. Well, I'm not going to focus on all of them. I'm only going to focus on the one, and that is 1914. Because the thing is, you take 1914 out at the knees, and you topple the whole belief system of Jehovah's Witnesses. You don't need to follow those other prophecies because they've already failed once. It's safe to say at this point that the generation of 1914 is pretty much gone. I think it was in the 1950s, Watchtower wanted to change the 1914 date to a later time. This would have bought them more time. But they also realized that if they changed that, they would have changed their whole core belief and toppled the entire system. See, all their mathematics has to do with 1914, so they opted not to change it. But even by the 1975 fiasco, this generation was getting on in years. And they were, every year that was going by, they were getting fewer and fewer and fewer. I came into the organization in 2006, so it was pretty obvious that the population had decreased to very few in numbers. Now, when the scriptures talk about a generation, they're not talking about a very small handful. They're talking about a sizable part of the population seeing all these signs, not one or two. Well, Watchtower realized that they had painted themselves into a corner. as they realized these people are gone. There may be one or two left. And it was 2010 that they had come up with this ingenious idea. And what better person to explain something than Watchtower's resident splainer, David Splain. And this is when they came up with the overlapping generation. And he came out with his Ross Perot pointer and explained it.
An easy way is to consider the situation of Brother Fred W. Franz. Now, you'll see that he's FWF on the chart. Now, as we said before, Brother Franz was born in 1893. He was baptized in November of 1913. So, as one of the Lord's anointed in 1914, he saw the sign and he understood what the sign meant. Now, Brother Franz lived a long life. He finished his earthly course at 99 years of age in 1992. Now, do you know of many who were of the anointed in 1914 and who outlived Brother Franz? There may have been some, but not many. Now, just for the sake of argument, suppose that we assume that Brother Franz was the last of that first group of anointed ones. That is, the group of anointed ones who were anointed in 1914, who saw the sign, and then continued serving faithfully. Now, we're not saying Brother Franz was. We just don't know. But for the sake of argument, let's suppose. In order to be part of this generation, someone would have had to have been anointed before 1992. Because he would have to have been a contemporary of some of the first group. Now, again, we're not saying that Brother Franz was the last of this group, but we're just using this for the sake of...
That was grade A bullshit.
And how did that go? As I recall, not very well. All I saw was a congregation full of people scratching their heads. People kind of took it in, but didn't know what to really make of it. I remember having a few of the older people in the congregation coming up to me afterwards and asked me to explain it. Well, I couldn't repeat it, let alone explain it. Well, it wasn't talked about too often, but I'm gathering from what I saw in my congregation that 93,000 other congregations were pretty much going through the same thing. This was the catalyst that led to my exit. Along with this, the child abuse problems, amongst other things. And I'm guessing that a lot of other people, it snapped them too as well. And over the years, it's pretty obvious that Watchtower is trying to change their image. They know that they have got the record for the most failed prophecies than any other religious organization. And this is the problem with dates. This is why Watchtower doesn't date anymore. But they have still painted themselves into a corner. So you can only carry an overlapping generation so far. I recall Stephen Lett coming out on JW Broadcasting at one point and saying that the Bible was never very specific on what a generation was. When yes, it was. If you read Matthew chapter 1, it's quite specific. A generation is no more than 40 or 50 years. And yet, the generation that would not pass away is well over 100 at this point in time. It was sometime in the 1980s and 1990s that Watchtower claimed that Armageddon would be no sooner or no later. It wouldn't hit the 21st century. They were quite specific about that. And here it is now, 21 years into the 21st century, and we're still here. But like I said, Watchtower has painted themselves into a corner. Now they're trying to change their image. They're changing their name to Watchtower, to jw.org, hoping they can get away from all that, but they're not realizing that jw.org is already tainted, along with Watchtower, beyond repair. Everybody is quite well aware of what this organization is. More and more people are waking up and walking away. But the one thing is about the organization, and JWs don't recognize, and there's a scripture we're all familiar with. And this is in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 22. And I'm going to read this out of the Silver Shank, where it says, "When the prophet speaks in the name of Jehovah, and the word is not fulfilled or does not come true, then Jehovah did not speak that word. The prophet spoke it presumptuously. You should not fear him." And yet Jehovah's Witnesses are in total fear of their governing body. They're in total fear of their elders. They're in total fear of everything in their life. This is why they're wound up so tight. And yet they totally ignore that scripture. As a matter of fact, have you ever recalled that scripture ever being read at the Kingdom Hall? Have you ever heard it read on JW Broadcasting? No, you wouldn't, because they don't want you to see it. As a matter of fact, I'm quite surprised, out of the many scriptures that they removed out of the Silver Shank in 2013, that one is still there. Jehovah's Witnesses, wake up. You have got a track record. Your organization has got a track record. See, one failed prophecy disqualifies any religious organization. It disqualified Watchtower. Your organization has well over 30. How many more failed prophecies do you have to see before you realize that these guys are absolutely full of horse hockey? Anyways, guys, that's all I wanted to mention. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. You guys have a good day, and I will talk to you soon.